liberal, doesn't matter. Okay. They are massively, massively important. So what you're saying is women be shopping? No, we're not going to be doing any of that. Teenage girls ain't the ones affording BTS tickets. I'm just saying that, like, the real meta is that think about all of, like, the biggest celebrities that have, like, exploded in popularity even to this day, but, like, certainly back when, you know, someone could be like a global iconic figure like Justin Bieber. It was like teenage girls that made up the core fan base. And those teenage girls grow up and become adult women, and they still make up the core of all the commerce decisions that are being made, all the purchase decisions that are being made. They are the ones who are in the front lines of trends. And they are the ones who I think will be a formative, they will present an important force for what comes next. Okay? That's what I think. Swifties run the world. Yeah, that's why I can't like make fun of Taylor Swift too much, because I get so scared. So it's great. I'm happy. Like Kyle Kalinske hit me up and was like, yo, the I've Had It ladies love you. I'm telling you, like, you know, the liberal Y moms are radicalizing. And I was like, Kyle, they've been on the ball. They've certainly gotten more radical in this last year post-election, but they have been there, you know? I had him on my stream. I had him on the show, on the podcast, on the Fear and podcast years ago, before the election. If you guys recall, they were at the DNC. They've been there. You know, a lot of people don't understand. Don't be scared of the Swifties. I'll protect you. White women, the 53% or so that voted for Trump, y'all, Glaze is too hard to watch. Yeah, no, that's the point. Do you not understand? Exactly. That is the point. They did. And you know who won? Donald Trump. That's the point I'm making. We got to swing that 53% in the opposite direction. That's what I'm saying. You are admitting the same point that I am making. Yes. Focus up. I don't see the shift is what I'm saying. Well, I'm going to keep working on it. Okay, wait. Just wait. Just you wait. Women hold just the structure of movements, but the work they do doesn't typically get the glory or face roll. You need to steer them away from Newsom. I know. Do a reading in the Tub series aimed at wine moms. Instant banger. Damn, we even got Demi Charm agreeing with me on this. Okay. As a black girl, but okay. No, I feel you. I feel you. We just got to make these allegiances work. You know what I mean? Like, because you're already there. Black women have already been at the forefront of every fucking radical movement in this goddamn country in perpetuity throughout history. They also comprise the base of support already that directly goes to whatever the left version is. I say this all the time. I think, like, if the Democratic Party was a democratic socialist party, I think black women would still overwhelmingly still vote for that version as well. Like, they don't vote for the Democrats because the Democrats are perfectly in line with their worldview. They vote for the Democrats because that's like the best possible strategic voting that they can engage in for self-preservation out of the two options that are readily available. That's it. In any case, yeah, there's never been a moment where black women haven't been carrying. I'm a liberal wine mom, formerly conservative, started moving left after Trump was nominated in 2016. There are a lot of us. Yeah, I think so too. And it's just one of the demographics of consequence in this country. Make no mistake. Oh, damn, my Tom Billio debate/podcast came out. America is a source of endless greed. Impact theory of Tom Billio. I don't necessarily care about debt at all, Hassan. There's the problem. Capitalism isn't failing people. Dude, it's crazy to me. It's crazy to me that I went on this podcast There's some Hasanabe heads that are working on the Tom Billio podcast. This guy is like an entrepreneur guy. I didn't know what it was when I went on, but I thought, of course I'll go on this. This seems great. Like I'll go on any podcast like that. You know what I mean? Especially ones that like focus on, entrepreneur stuff like that. But I didn't realize how much of the focus of it was going to be on like capitalism versus socialism. But what I thought was really interesting was that like you got a guy like Tom Billier, who is an entrepreneur podcast guy, actively talking about how we got to find solutions to the current system. That's a good start. His answers are, in my opinion, far too focused on like the issue of debt. Having said that, however, the very fact that he is even recognizing that there is a major issue is good. It's not bad. It's good, because this is the type of guy who is normally supposed to tell you like everything is awesome. Everything is awesome. There is no problem. There are no problems. Everyone needs to shut the hell up. You get to eat McDonald's burger every day. There's never been a better time to be alive than right now. Like, that's the Steven Pinker method, right? Like, this is the grind harder guy, right? If the grind harder guy is all of a sudden moving the issues away from individual responsibility back to systemic flaws, that means that, even rich people are starting to recognize, even rich people who make a living off of saying, you just got to work your way through the system, are recognizing that there is a genuine issue. Are you sure he's not just going where the wind takes him? I don't know. 40K is crazy work? What do you mean? Oh, you're saying like all these podcast appearances? Yeah, I did. I've had it. I did this podcast a while back. This past week. And then on top of that, I did Twitch push notifications aren't working, King. You're shadow banned. And then I did Al Jazeera too. I do think debt will be a problem in not too long. As soon as the dollar is in the world reserve currency, I think that's a matter of time. The debt we have really does start to matter. I agree. Yeah. Dude, I'm unemployed and I can't keep up with you. Yeah, man. I do media appearances, podcasts. I'm all over the goddamn place, It is what it is. Yeah, we got a bunch of media appearances in the books too, in the works. I was on Al Jazeera, The Take, Twitch to Politics, Hassan Piker on Gaza and the U.S. right wing. I went on the podcast The Take. That was cool. That's on video too. I always have to search especially for you because Hasanabe doesn't appear on my page. Yeah, dropping off 80K worth of podcast appearances like it's nothing, dude. You already know, 20K a pop. I am emailing Al Jazeera. They need to know you're an anti-Semite, bro. Yeah. The mega charm offensive is beautiful. It's not even a charm offensive. I don't think you guys understand. I say no to a litany of different media opportunities with regular frequency because I just simply don't have enough time. So these past couple of weeks, I've had the time to do this stuff. And ultimately, Patrick Bet David. He reached out. We're moving. Initially, I think they wanted me to do like one of the Valuetainment Network podcasts to work my way up to it. And I was like, I'm not doing that. That's crazy. Like it's either Patrick or bust. And so we might do something like that as well. We might do a Patrick Bet David, dude. My goat. I can't wait to see Vinny in person. He's gonna probably try to kill me, but you know, that's exciting.
How do you do it?
Yeah, the Jam episode is out as well. Hassan Piker eats cake with a spoon. Obviously, there's that too. Were there any media appearances that gave you huge engagement spikes? No. It doesn't work like that. It never works like that. I'm too established in my career at this point for me to see like a huge spike. That works for like someone who goes on the Joe Rogan Experience and before then they have like maybe a smaller podcast or something and they make a big impact. That doesn't at this point people know who I am. And you know, people have made up their minds. You know, there's always new people coming in for sure, but that's not how it works. Like, for example, I'll tell you this much: none of the mainstream appearances actually end up bringing people to watch the Twitch stream at all. Like, not even a little bit. However, mainstream appearances are good because that's what all the, you know, the marketing managers and the media executives, like, they are the ones who are actually tapped into that. The unks who are totally removed from this side of the universe. Like, they are so oblivious to this kind of stuff. So they see it. So then in their minds, they're like, oh, that's a person. That's a person I've heard of. And it's just like you're top of mind. And then they think about like maybe a project that they're working on. And then in that process, they're like, oh, Hassan could be a good person for this, right? But overall, I don't mind doing this stuff. I don't mind going anywhere and everywhere as long as it's within my bandwidth. So that's it. I'm gonna be honest. I think you're way bigger on YouTube and really minimizing your potential for not multi-streaming. Maybe. How did that audition turn out? Did we discuss this? What audition? Any podcast while you're in China? That'd be sick. What stuff would you say no to?
I know Hassan said,
yeah, I can't wait to go on Patrick Bet David, bro.
you know, Trump is talking about the border and the illegals are the problem. They are the problem. By the way, I don't respect any Nepo baby that thinks Twitch streaming is a job. And I want the audience to know, this guy, Hassan, has said in the past that America deserved 9/11. So don't even talk. Don't even open your mouth. Don't even open your mouth. You don't have no reason to talk.
Vinny,
just shut up.
I'm a big
just
fan of you.
do me a favor and shut up.
I'm a big fan of you. And,
okay, but hold on.
I'm a big fan of you, so I don't want you to die. I feel like your heart pressure is going up. You're turning red, Vinny.
Somebody like you to say America deserved 9/11, Hassan, you shouldn't be on this fucking panel. I'm sorry for my language, Piers. He doesn't belong on your show. That being said, Piers, it'll be a huge challenge.
You triggered, Vinny?
Oh, man. Please bring up that Vinny was a Twitch streamer. Oh, dude, I'm his most loyal fan. Are you kidding me? Pierce Mergen the whole way through. Lemonade Stand Podcast going to China. You guys could link up and bask in the glory of the CCP. Wait, they are? What the fuck is AJ? Al Jazeera, man. What are you kidding me? The greatest. When are you debating Charlie Kirk? In a couple like next month, around this time. Yeah, that's coming up. I did cancel the Cuba trip, yes, because I didn't want to go to prison, and unfortunately. He's going to run. He won't do it. No, he'll do it. But we're locked in. What's the context behind you saying U.S. deserved 9/11? It's very simple. American foreign policy and intervention in the region directly caused blowback and led to 9/11. That's it. A pretty simple concept. Most people agree with it. My entire career is a sequence of people actively, sometimes because of the way I word things, but in other instances, people just like voluntarily taking the most cynical approach to whatever the fuck I'm saying and then manufacturing outrage surrounding it. It is what it is. Yeah. People have much less visceral reaction when I say the Pentagon deserved 9/11, lol. Yeah. It's just, there are a couple different, here's the thing, okay? For a lot of people that take for granted, living in the United States and never really questioning certain things and just like taking it as a truth, right? When I say, for example, that someone who is a part of a state military, like the Israeli military, conducting an illegal raid in an illegally occupied territory such as the West Bank is open for, regardless of who they are, regardless of how much you like them or whatever, like in the process of conducting a military raid, they are totally susceptible to any sort of like violent retaliation by the occupied peoples. When I say that, that's just objectively true, but people get really fucking mad about it. People lose their minds over it because like it tweaks their brain, right? Where they're like, what do you fucking mean? What? This doesn't make any sense. I know people that are that serve in the military. How dare you say that they're like a valid target? It's like they are. Like it's just, that is the case. Like if you're doing an illegal occupation, like what you're doing is a crime. And yes, of course people have every legal right, and also, what is this? Funded by Liquid Death. Shut up. Talking Points funded by Liquid Death. Don't believe this Kirk bitch. Funded by Liquid Death with Zoran fucking Marxist racist. Bait. Yeah, I know. That's like... it's just... It's funny that that's like how... It's funny how stupid a lot of people are about this. Like, it's funny how stupid a lot of my haters are, that like even the average person at this point goes, dude, they're just drinking fucking water. Like, what's wrong with you? You know? The whole like, oh, you want to... Genuinely baffling that you criticize capitalism, yet you participate in capitalism is such a salient dunk in moron circles. Like, I think the point is that these people are already wealthy. They don't need to do shit like this. They could have just had tap water in the counter instead. When you're struggling to make ends meet, sure, be turbo capitalist. But when you're a literal millionaire, don't take corporate brand gigs while complaining about corporations. Yeah. Like, this person has fantasized that I've gotten a brand deal here by Liquid Death to do this stream or something. And it's just wrong. But they're done. They've already made up their minds. There are so many people like this who just unironic. This has been popping off. I don't know what happened. But this has been a lot of people have been posting this footage over and over again. This photo over and over again to be like, a lot of blue chicks were posting this over and over and over again, being like, hell yeah, dude, these guys are fucking getting sponsored streams and all this shit. And it's like, that's not, no, we're just drinking water, man. Like, it just happens to be Liquid Death water, but we're not. Wouldn't Mamdani have had to disclose it if he appeared in it? Yeah, of course. Mamdani is a public servant that is like literally running for office at this point. This is before the New York primaries. This would be completely illegal. So on every Like the simplest thing is when you see a photo like this from a stream, when you see a snapshot of a stream like this, your mind shouldn't automatically go to, oh, is there a brand deal that these guys got? It should probably go to, oh, they're just drinking liquid death because that was what was available in the store. You know what I mean? But the thing is, like, the dumber my haters get and the dumber the broader public gets, the more salient positions like this become. You can just, like, make an idiotic take like this and it will go fucking viral and it doesn't matter. People have already made up their goddamn minds on it. So they just go along with it over and over and over again. Many such cases. I mean, my response to it did go fairly viral as well. Love the product placement during a discussion of how capitalism ruins everything. I said, we're literally just drinking water, man. It's true. We're just, socialism means no water. Socialism means no water. This is the real Watergate. Rules for thee, but not for me. We're literally just drinking water in response to critiquing on supporting one of the purest forms of capitalism, selling water when you're the socialist content creator in an amount of social dissonance that's almost impressive. Buddy, this is what I mean. It's just, oh. Ay, ay, ay. I guess it's good, and it's indicative of the reality that they can't find something that's real, so they just have to fantasize about something that's not real, that even if it was real, doesn't even fucking actually make sense. Like, even if I did a branded fucking stream, not with Zoran because he's an elected official, but like, even if I personally did a fucking liquid death sponsored stream, like, the fuck do you mean? What does that have to do with socialism? You know? Like, that's not even an immoral thing. So you're wrong on that front too, but you're doubly wrong because it's not even a sponsored stream. You just have nothing. It's so funny because, like, you'll look at these guys' profiles and they're like following the worst, like, sex pests. They'll be like conservative. And then they're following, you know, they voted for Donald Trump and they're following a litany of different, like, right-wing pedophiles and shit. And it's like, dude, just focus on your own shit. You know what I mean? Please. But it is funny because, like, we joke sometimes when we say, like, socialism means no house, whatever, right? And people will be like, no, it's just like, if you are even advocating for marginally better society, that means, like, you can't actually, that means I get to dictate what kind of house you live in, right? Or how much money you make. And then they will unironically try to do debates around this process. And at that point, you're just basically... at that point, you're basically just fighting against the dumbest people. You're fighting against, like, their own hallucinations. But if everyone is hallucinating in the same way, or if a significant number of people are hallucinating in that alternative reality, then I guess sometimes you just have to say something about it. Pretty sure there's a psyop going on right now to put a wedge between leftists. Way too much purity testing going on essentially for no reason. No, I think it's a part of the cycle. There is a lot of momentum right now for one of the pivotal issues that leftists have been on board with and have been right about for quite a while, Israel-Palestine. And therefore, when that happens, when we get to a point where you know, the people that have been consistently advocating were right, and on top of that, there is no real change happening, people start pulling in the ranks, and they start just like circling the wagons around one another and start attacking one another instead. It stems from a place of powerlessness. I say this all the time. This is normal. Liberals used to do that all the time in the first Trump administration when there was like obviously a lot of animosity against Trump, but no one could really do anything about it. So they just started infighting instead, thinking that this is a more productive outcome when it clearly isn't. That's the opposite of circling the wagons. I know. What is it called? It's not circling the wagons. Circling the wagons is when you protect the in-group. Circular firing squad. Wagoning the circles. No, circular firing squad is what it is. I mean, they really won't let go of the lefties didn't vote on purpose. Nah, I think that's just like... That's just people chirping. Let them chirp. Who cares? Bro, please, this is not why we're frustrated with you. We just felt like you went on Kitty Glows with us. Dude, I'm not even talking about that. What are you saying? We've moved past that point, brother. What? That's not even what I'm talking about. What are you saying right now? I can't even make a fucking broader point about like liberals fucking yelling at the left without some dude in my chat being like, nah, you don't understand. My criticisms are valid. I get it, dude. You were valid. I'm wrong. I'm so sorry. Okay, please stop. Jesus Christ. What the fuck? It's past infighting. Eggman and his ilk have been saying some heinous shit lately. Yeah. It used to be possible to treat Matt Iglesias, Noah Smith, Brett Stevens, etc. as amusing buffoons. But with the onset of the genocide, they were revealed as morally depraved psychopaths who will rationalize the blowing up and starvation of babies. They're not a joke anymore. It's fun to mock these men for their combination of confidence and ignorance, but they are actively working to provide intellectual cover for some of the worst crimes against humanity ever perpetrated. I find it hard to keep laughing at them. They are sinister. I agree. I just can't deal with them because they piss me off so much. It makes it so that their takes are so horrible. Their takes are so awful.
How quickly a constitutional state can become an unjust state and how this leads to darkness. But it also shows that we cannot simply stand by and watch. When this happens, we must take action.
Indeed. There are other examples like your game playable here at Gamescom, such as Glass House by Flat 28 Collective.
I thought she was going to say like America.
CRP
Damn! Lyric coming out hot. They keep coming up with dumb shit to try to make it a bigger deal as usual, and it never works. When they try the next thing, it's fucking stupid. Yeah. Cuomo news. I got audio with Andrew Cuomo at one of his Hamptons fundraisers, and he's counting on Trump and top Republicans to encourage New Yorkers to vote for him and not Adams or Sliwa to stop Zohran Mamdani. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Gamescom announced a Sekiro video game. I mean, a Sekiro anime, which is exciting. What do people not get about it isn't helpful? Hasan Abi is literally trying to help make a change. They just won't hear it. They won't hear it. I've noticed that. I've noticed in my experience that it sucks, but there's not really much you can do about it, especially when most people don't necessarily care about the context or nuance or the truth about any particular thing. And you just have to keep pushing. You just have to keep reiterating what you believe, and you just have to keep doing the work. And eventually people will either come to the correct conclusions on their own and come to recognize our worldview, the things that we advocate for as moral and just, and hopefully fight alongside people like yourselves, people like myself, or they'll just keep being angry. That's it. And there's not really much you can do about that. That's it. You just keep pushing and do good work and try to help others, okay? One of my friends who I've been talking to, like, I've had a tumultuous past couple of days. I've gotten vicious smears and attacks, and they've only escalated in the aftermath of positive media coverage and things of that nature. But there was one piece of really, really, really good news that took place that reminded me that it's all worth it at the end of the day. And that is that one of my friends, I'm not going to reveal who, but one of my friends out of Gaza, and don't ask me who it is, has made it out of Gaza, and he's in the United States of America. And I was like tearing up when I saw that. He hit me up. He told me, like, I finally made it to America. And like any kind of impact that you can have in even one person's life like that is so important, so consequential, and such a good thing, you know? It makes everything, it makes it all worth it. It's shit like that. That's what really matters. Especially as, like, the American government is now looking at ways of reversing visa programs and things like that. It's just so fucking frustrating. So, hey, brother, you've changed my whole worldview thanks to your analysis. I've gone from being pro-Israel to pro-Palestine. I've used your arguments to change my whole family's opinion too. You do good work. Don't stop. Yep. Yeah, this is why I do it. And this is why you should also, if there's one takeaway, from the way I operate, if you get one takeaway from the way I operate and, like, follow my example, if you will, that should be to maintain charity and to constantly keep pushing, constantly try to make change in the world. Change your friends' attitudes, change your family's attitudes. Don't get discouraged, and make a dent in your own communities. That's it. I know it's when times get tough, it's easy to feel discouraged and nihilistic and look for more appropriate targets that will be the recipient of your anger and resentment. But eventually you just have to let it go and just keep pushing. That's what I've been doing this whole time, and I urge you all to do the same. Take on the emotional labor if you can, and maintain revolutionary optimism. And if you can't maintain revolutionary optimism because you look at how things have moved in the positive direction over the course of decades, then you can maintain revolutionary optimism and not succumb to nihilism out of pure spite for the enemy, okay? Because some of the worst people on the planet would love for you and me to shut the fuck up and to just go away and to show our bellies and say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. That's what keeps me going. It feeds into it feeds into my ambitions. Okay? What do you say to people who are too afraid to go to protests? Protests are amazing. Solidarity, like experiencing solidarity, being surrounded by like-minded people with a singular goal in mind is the closest expression to love that you see, that you experience. 100%. When I go out and I attend protests internationally, when I go to other countries and go to protests, or when I go to other countries and like talk to political leaders in other countries and people who are like-minded, I'm reminded of that solidarity. And it is the closest thing I've ever felt to an expression of love. Just having, just being around people who get it. It is incredible. It gives you so much confidence. It restores your faith in humanity. It's an amazing experience, and I highly recommend it. Anyway, now let's get to Vladimir Putin. Okay?
Steps in the push to end this war in Ukraine. The White House says President Trump again spoke with Russia's Vladimir Putin yesterday in what the Kremlin says was a 40-minute phone call. Now, that came after Ukraine's President Zelensky visited the White House yesterday along with key European allies. The group got the president to agree to security guarantees for Ukraine. Nancy Cordes is at the White House. Good morning, Nancy. We understand there is an effort now to have Putin and Zelensky meet face-to-face. Do you really think that's going to happen anytime soon?
I think this is the greatest chance we've seen so far, Gail. Good morning. During that call with the Russian president, President Trump worked to arrange this meeting between Putin and Zelensky, which the German chancellor told reporters could happen within the next 2 weeks. This would be the first meeting between these two leaders since the war began 3.5 years ago. And a Russian spokesperson, though, would only say that high-level talks would take place and did not confirm that Putin himself would be involved.
And I have a feeling you and President Putin are going to work something out.
5 hours of meetings between President Trump, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and European leaders yielded two key results. First, a promise from President Trump that the U.S. will help provide security guarantees designed to protect a post-war Ukraine from future invasions by Russia.
The other material outcome was the agreement that will now be a bilateral agreement between President Putin and President Zelensky.
That was British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, one of 7 European power players who all flew into D.C. in a show of support for Zelensky.
And thank you very much for your efforts.
After Trump appeared to find common cause with Putin last week following their summit in Alaska.
We had an extremely productive meeting and many points were agreed to.
In a revealing hot mic moment yesterday, Trump seemed to suggest to French President Emmanuel Macron that Putin would end the war as a favor to him.
I think he wants to make a deal for me. You understand? I mean, as crazy as it sounds.
Trump did agree with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen that the return of an estimated 20,000 Ukrainian children kidnapped by Russia at the start of the war should be a top priority.
Every single child has to go back to its family.
But Trump remained lukewarm Monday on the need for a ceasefire, even as the Europeans insisted there must be an immediate end to Russia's.
I guess, if anything, America is consistent, at least now, where America's consistent. They hate ceasefires, and they love regional powers absolutely eviscerating their neighbors or even the occupied peoples that they are the belligerent occupier over. You know, that's just like, that's who we are. and it's in broad display. We have no investment or interest in peace. Permanent state of war is actually what floats the boats. So, sorry, some kids are going to die. You know, we just hate children. We just hate children, and we love seeing them get executed by weapons, drones, and things like that. Also, another thing that we hate here in the United States of America, of course, is international law. That's another thing. You know, it's great. That's just how it is. That's just how it is. Appeasement sucks. I mean, they're not even doing appeasement, to be fair. Like, and we say appeasement, but also there is no real alternative to dealing with Putin at this stage. He has, through a brutal occupation, been able to militarily overtake pieces of Ukraine, 20% of Ukrainian territory, by force, while simultaneously avoiding the worst impacts of sanctions, and also, taking out the Ukrainian military piece by piece, even though they're armed by every Western nation. They tried it. The Western nations tried it. Maybe they could have tried harder. I think potentially. I think, like, when I go back with hindsight 2020 goggles, which ironically enough wasn't hindsight at the time because I said it at the time as well, I would say that, like, big push early on, and then immediately packing it up when Ukraine had maximum leverage was the best possible option. Before the invasion of Russia, the obviously even better option would have been to abide by the Minsk agreements with, like, international authorities, like, coming in to make sure that both parties were abiding by those agreements. That would have obviously been the best option, which is another thing that I also advocated for early on. But none of those things happened. And instead, Western powers, I think, thought that they would be able to destroy Russia. They thought that they would be able to cripple Russia's military, and they thought that they would be able to destroy the Russian economy. And I think it was an abject failure. This is one of the instances where very clearly America was on the right side of this conflict for the wrong reasons. And because they were on the right side of the conflict for wrong reasons, because their reasons were not, like, the true emancipation of the true emancipation of the freedom of Ukrainians to, like, maintain some semblance of Ukrainian sovereignty to the best of their ability, I think, you know, it just was an abject failure, demonstrably so. And the entire time, over the course of the past 3 years, they just kept saying, no, it's not a failure. This is actually really good. This is actually really good. They silenced anyone that said, hey, this doesn't look good, actually. This looks really bad, and it's heading in an even worse direction. Do you really think the top military minds thought Ukraine was going to take down Moscow? They knew all along. I think there were definitely people who, it doesn't really matter what they genuinely think, right? Because what matters is what they did, whether it was indecent or genuine, whether it was cynical or a genuine a feeling that Ukraine would be able to push back the Russian forces ultimately is inconsequential, because what is consequential is what has happened thus far. And what has happened thus far is Russia's been able to push in to Ukraine. Now, were there some military minds that thought that they would be able to overwhelm the Russian forces or atrophy the Russian forces? Certainly. I think there were definitely people that thought that, for sure. Were there some people who didn't give a shit and thought, even if the Russian military is not successfully dismantled, it still doesn't matter, because we're sending weapons, a steady flow of older weapons to Ukraine. Ukraine has become a testing ground for new weapons like drone warfare, things of that nature. It's a laboratory, basically, for defensive and offensive capabilities. That's fantastic for the military-industrial complex. Yeah, I think that win or lose, those guys always win. Because those guys always win in a permanent state of war. And a permanent state of war is really bad for, obviously, the captive civilian population. It's really bad for the Ukrainians that were displaced, really bad for the Ukrainians that had to run away from their homes and now had to move out of the country. It's really bad for the Ukrainians that remain in the country that don't want to get forcibly drafted and have to just like avoid the authorities. It is, however, very good for American weapons manufacturers overall.
Daily bombings before serious peace talks can begin.
I can't imagine that the next meeting would take place without a ceasefire. So let's work on that and let's try to put...
Let's be real. Everyone thought Russia would pack up Ukraine in like 3 weeks when the invasion began. The real big weapons transfer started when they pushed the Russians back, when the resistance was stiffer than expected. Oh, for sure. I think that was a big miscalculation from Putin. And I think it's ultimately cope that people say, oh, no, Putin always just wanted Eastern territory. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. They just did not have, they literally did not have the established, they were not able to establish air superiority as quickly as they thought they would. And when they were unable to establish air superiority, and the Ukrainian anti-aircraft, the anti-aircraft defenses actually proved to be a much more powerful defensive capability than they thought, than they had miscalculated. They were unable to create supply lines that could go to the front lines. They just were not able to do so. So they had to retreat back to the Eastern Ukrainian territories and make gains in the ways that they have so far and basically harden their position. It's still worse than before the invasion because now 20% of Ukraine is acquired by Russia as annexed territory. Russian gains are minimal. You overestimate Russian gains and underestimate the state of the Russian economy. I don't think Russian gains are minimal. They literally have a complete occupation of 20% of Ukraine. The defensive capabilities of Ukraine have diminished spectacularly because they don't have the manpower. That's crazy. They gained 1% since 2022. Chatter, there is no world in which an irredentist regional power overtaking 20% of a neighboring state whose entire national project has been independence from said irredentist power is a fucking marginal victory. What are you talking about? Yeah, he wanted all of it and he only got 20%. If that's what you're saying, fair is fair, but like that's still a major defeat for America and the Western forces in general. Most of the land was taken before the war in 2014. No, that's not true. The only one winning from this is China. I think China is winning from this, but China is probably still one of the more reasonable parties to involve in this process. But also the ones winning from this are American oil and gas industry giants that have been able to forcibly enter the European market by saying, like, you can't get all your energy from Russia anymore. You have to get it from us. And also the military industrial complex that's just like able to consistently expand their budgets year over year. Not only that, but now we have an even more indecent force than the Raytheons and the Lockheed Martins and the Northrop Grummons and the Boeings of the world. Now we have the Palantirs and the Andurils of the world, Silicon Valley tech CEOs that are also getting into this sector, because they know this is the best possible way to make billions of fucking dollars with very little oversight. It's just unlimited free money. What is this? Occupation time lapse since 2022 to 2025 mapping? What is this? What is this music, bro? This is so funny. Why is the music from... Why is the audio, like, filmed from a phone camera off of a TV or something? Here, I got something better. I got something better, okay? Here. Here, this is better. That's better, I think. Yeah, Red Alert music is better. What is happening with this line over here? Not beating the pro-Russia allegations. I mean, this is... It's how you take it. Play Moscow by Genghis Khan. Anyway, look, there's 1224 active pushes here. This is the worst possible video we could have ever seen. This is 1% since 2022 is based on Russians claiming they got most of Ukraine on a map with a massive operation in the first days of the war. They were not real gains. It was just Russian troops walking in and walking back once the PR was done. Chat, we're watching Russians taking territory is nonfiction historical fact. It isn't pro-Russian. I know. People don't. They just have lost the capacity to look at this as like anything but just like taking a side on this. Like, it's just, I'm not. My side is not on Russian territorial expansion. I don't agree with what they're doing. I think it's unconscionable and it's unjustifiable. It's incredibly stupid to assume that I'm like, or to cynically claim that I'm like actually in favor of this or whatever. It's not the case. Anyway, regarding the war's expectations, Russian intelligence had convinced Putin that Ukraine would buckle after a show of force, multi-axis invasion within 2 months max. They did not prepare for a war. They prepared for a parade. This is why it took months to regain their footing and only stabilize the front line at the end of 2022. Wait, didn't Ukraine do a big push north into Russia? Was that propaganda? Yeah, it's right here. Kursk. The Kursk counteroffensive. That's it. They took this little blip here. Which, from what I understand, they were able to, Russians sent in North Korean troops as well in that process to do interior security. But at the same time, you're saying Ukraine should be giving him the fight. The square isn't circling. No, I'm saying that America has lost this conflict. That's it. I don't think it's the moral thing. And I think that eventually Ukrainians will continue insurgency and make it costly to do permanent annexation, okay, I think that going forward, this is not going to be state versus state warfare, and instead it's going to look like an insurgency if there is if there is a serious interest in doing so, which I suspect there is, okay? Some of the most radical elements within the Ukrainian defense forces is most likely going to engage in covert operations, and America will probably still do, like, they'll still beef up that aspect of it. But I think that probably is a sad but still better outcome than continuing the military expansion of Russian forces pushing inch by inch into Ukrainian territory, because every inch that they take of Ukrainian territory comes with a major cost. But at a certain point, people do have to ask, like, why was I so misguided about my understanding of this situation? Why was I so misguided? Like, because someone, if you were of the mindset that for the past 3 years, like, Ukraine is doing it, they're killing it, they're gonna fucking push the Russian forces out any moment now, the counteroffensive is imminent, like, you have to ask yourself, like, where did I arrive at this information? Where did I arrive at this conclusion? I do think that ultimately, while Ukrainians put up a brave fight for every piece of land that the Russians still forcibly overtook, like, an honest and sober assessment of what was actually unfolding would have been, I think, would have been better for the people overall. Who misled you? Why were you misled?
Pressure on Russia.
The group did not discuss what should happen to the 20% of Ukrainian territory that is currently controlled by Russian forces. Zelensky said that's a matter he'll only hash out with Putin himself.
All the sensitive things, territorial, etc., we will discuss on the level of leaders during trilateral meeting.
And so now the pressure is on Putin to accept and attend this meeting. He has always had a long list of demands that he's...
Bro, it's not even our conflict. This is Putin's war, similar to the war in Gaza is Netanyahu's war. We didn't necessarily win or lose because it's truly not our fight. This is American cope, for the record. It's especially ridiculous to say this about Benjamin Netanyahu's war. There is no Israel without American military intervention. Okay, that's number one. At least in Ukraine, we were functionally on the right side, the side that was being invaded unjustifiably. But in Israel, we are completely on the wrong side. In Israel, we're on the Russian side, basically, for Israel against the Palestinian population. And also, what Israel's doing is not a war anyway. Not only is it not Benjamin Netanyahu's war, it's not even a war at all. It's just genocide. And we are allowing it to happen, and we're giving Israel the weapons to do so every step of the way. And we're defending Israel every step of the way against retaliation from other regional actors.
Said needed to be met before he would sit down with Zelensky. But he told Trump on Friday he was open to it. So the world will be watching Vlad to see if he follows through.
All right, Nancy, thank you very much.
New Russian strikes on Ukraine, the largest aerial assault since July, and then just a few minutes ago, Moscow refused to commit to a meeting between Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
How was America lost? Russia and Ukraine have lost, not the West? What do you mean? Like, America lost in the sense that, like, they wanted the battle lines to look different. They wanted Vladimir Putin to be coming back to the United States of America begging for an end to the sanctions and giving up Ukrainian territory back to Ukraine, that Ukraine could just, like, have play a formative role and become a NATO enclave. None of those things are happening. And instead, we're currently trying to basically we're currently trying to rewrite the conversation in a way that is like palatable for American audiences to make it seem like, well, we just got to give up Ukrainian territory. Sorry, sucks to suck. Because the reality of the matter is we have the terms and conditions of this ceasefire is going to be dictated by the battle lines, and the battle lines are not favoring Ukraine at all. The front lines do not favor Ukraine at all in this process. I feel like you're inferring a bit much. I don't think USA cared about this that much at all. It's like saying the American government didn't care about Afghanistan and we didn't take an L in Afghanistan after 20 years of occupation and then like giving the country back to the Taliban. Yeah, technically for the military industrial complex, Afghanistan was amazing. But America ostensibly took an L there. Same with Vietnam. America took an L there as well. That's it. We dumped billions and billions of dollars there instead of working on our own infrastructure, instead of like feeding the hungry, you know, and rebuilding our roads and hardening our infrastructure against natural disasters that increase in magnitude and frequency every year. You're basically making it seem like that all was actually, you know, it was great. It was awesome. Do you think that that was awesome? This seems like a PR project for U.S. presidents rather than some big realpolitik play. No, it's not a PR project for U.S. presidents at all. And even if it was just simply a PR project for U.S. presidents, don't you think that it was still a spectacular failure? I don't think people understand. You'll come back to this moment. You'll come back to this moment. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think we will come back to this moment and reflect on what took place, because I think this is the real multipolarity is here moment. Okay? We've been saying it over and over again. We've been saying it over and over again, but like this is it. You know? This is it. Because America is already casting aside whatever like soft power initiatives it had, and it's hardening its positions. But this is not a soft power thing. This is a hard power situation. America gave, a fuck ton of weapons to Ukraine with the hopes that Ukraine would be able to at least like push Russian forces out and still continue to engage in unlimited conflict so that the weapons would still flow into Ukraine. That's still going to be good for the American military industrial complex budgets. But they would be able to show that they were, destroying the Russian military, and that Russia couldn't make any territorial acquisitions. And like, even in the process of holding them back, you would still need an endless flow of weapons. But like, the reason why you're seeing Donald Trump basically try to wash his hands over this process without taking any ownership over it is because he sees the writing on the wall, I think. Yeah, I mean, it's part of it is, of course, part of the negotiations process is obviously clouded with his own personal closeness to Vladimir Putin. But in the past, I think like the theory was America as the world police, as the singular hegemonic power, was able to keep other regional powers at bay, even regional powers that are foreign adversaries. Okay? With Ukraine, they failed to do so. And I think because with Ukraine they failed to do so, they're allowing Israel to do whatever the fuck it wants to do, and allowing Israel to also basically steer American foreign policy in the Middle East, in that region, in whichever direction they see fit, and it is becoming increasingly belligerent for that reason. It's kind of like a tune-up fight. A fighter gets beaten up, concussed, and your prize fighter has to go back and your prize fighter has to go back in the ring at some point And in that process, you do a tune-up fight. You make your fighter regain its confidence by fighting an opponent that is much easier to defeat. And for American foreign policy, this is relatively reductive, the way I'm explaining it. But for American foreign policy, they see like what Israel's doing in that area as almost like a tune-up fight, because all of the quote-unquote enemies are non-state actors and militia movements. Non-state actors and militia movements that are born out of occupied territories or born in nations that are under the banner of American security, like Lebanon. You know, I'm talking about Hezbollah, or out of nations that are mired in conflict because of Western intervention as well, like Yemen. Very poor nations. So, of course, it looks very different.
But stopping short of ruling out any further talks. Now, the meeting was supposed to be one of the major takeaways, if not the major takeaway from the historic White House summit yesterday. President Trump even posted that he's working on setting up that bilateral meeting between Zelensky and Vladimir Putin. But again, just a few minutes ago, the Kremlin said it is only prepared to, quote, raise the level of the delegation it sends to meetings with Ukraine. And that really is the key this morning, to try to determine what the concrete takeaways were from what were very visible.
But people say China is seen as cutting out on Ukraine and smiling real wide at Taiwan is so crazy, because the greatest opportunity for China to do anything to Taiwan militarily, if they had the ambition to do so, would have been when America was too busy with the initial stages of Israel's genocide. Okay? There have been a million opportunities, and I said this over and over again at the time. No, for China, as far as like Taiwan unification goes, they just sit and wait. They don't have to do shit. Look at what America is doing. Look at what Trump is doing at the global stage. All they have to do is say, oh, we're brothers. What do you mean? You speak the same language I do. We come from the same culture. What do you want, these fucking Westoids to run your country maybe like 5 years later? And I think, yeah, the most ideal position for China is to just sit back and wait. They don't need to do shit. Donald Trump is over here talking about hitting Taiwan with tariffs. And you're like, oh no, China is really excited to militarily overtake Taiwan. They don't have to do shit. Donald Trump is the great nation builder for China. That's it. That's it. Just sit it out and just constantly point to what America's doing and go, are you guys seeing this? That's all you need to do. That's all you need to do. It's kind of like with my haters too, when I just like let them fucking scream into the void over and over again, and I just like kick back and I go, do you see how crazy these people are? And then they inevitably fucking in their hysteria, in their endless hysteria, they show their true ambitions. Trump is the great nation builder for China is one of the most important takes, okay?
Visibly good feelings at this White House summit yesterday between President Trump, President Zelensky, and all these key European leaders you're seeing on the screen right now. They left with good feelings. The question this morning now is, will they get good results? Let's go right to CNN's Elena Treen at the White House for the latest. The president continues to say he's setting up the meeting. The Russians continue to throw a little bit of cold water on that, Elena.
Yeah, I mean, it was very clear heading into yesterday, John, that was the goal for the president specifically, President Trump, I should say. He wanted to be able to get another meeting on the books that included Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky sitting down in the same room. And you saw him, you know, he did have a 40-minute phone call yesterday in the Oval Office with the Russian leader. He actually paused his ongoing meeting with the 7 European leaders and Zelensky taking place place at the White House to have that conversation with Putin. And then I talked to a White House official who told me he then invited that group back in, the European leaders and Zelensky, to the Oval Office after he wrapped that call to fill them in on what was discussed. And then, of course, we saw his Truth Social post saying that he is making arrangements for a bilateral meeting first between Zelensky and Putin, and then hopefully a trilateral meeting after that. But you're exactly right. There is a lot of skepticism of whether that is actually possible, when it could take place, where it would take place, but if the Russians are even willing to agree to that. And I think the key thing here is we're hearing them throw cold water on this idea. I remind you that Putin does not view Zelensky as his equal. You know, he was the one who started the war that invaded Ukraine illegally, and that's really been a problem throughout this entire time. However, there's also not just the president here, but a lot of other top advisors to him are telling him that they believe that the only way to get this solved and to end the war is to have the two of them sit down in the same room and discuss this. And that's kind of what we heard from Bessent this morning when he was on CNBC. Take a listen.
He invited President Putin to land that the Russians used to own. He displayed a huge amount of military hardware and then did a flyover. It was kind of like inviting your uncontrollable neighbor to your house and showing him your gun case. And my strong belief is that there will be a bilateral meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky. And this
is, again, unimaginable cope, dude. God damn, this is such terrifying cope. No one has the capacity to be honest about the situation that is happening. Okay? So they have to just be like, no, we still hold the cards. I promise we still hold the cards. Like, I'll be honest with you. I don't even know what the liberal position is here. Like, they are attacking Trump and saying, like, no, Trump is not doing a good job, which is true. He's not, because it's fucking Trump, okay? But also at the same time, there's people that they have, like John Bolton on, who are just constantly saying, like, no, you don't understand. Trump is supposed to be, like, way more aggressive with Vladimir Putin, which is, I guess that part is true. Even as a posturing thing, even as like the negotiations are unfolding. But like, if we don't have leverage, or if the leverage that we have in our hands at our disposal is like the nuclear option that will do more harm to us and might not actually work in the long run, then what is the alternative? Like, I don't understand, because like the positions are clear. If the problems that the Ukrainian defense are facing is a lack of manpower, then you need to make up for that with manpower. So what do? Either deport Ukrainian men that are of conscription age back to Ukraine to be forced into the front lines after training, with no guarantee that that will actually even succeed in pushing back the Russian forces anyway. It probably would help, but there's no maximum guarantee. There's no guarantee that it's going to work. Okay. You can't send in foreign troops. You can't send in foreign troops because foreign troops that are a part of NATO would then trigger Article 5, and it would be impossible to I think, domestically present that as the viable option. I don't even know if fucking Poland would be able to justify doing that, even if they were to say, all right, we're not going to trigger Article 5, and we're going to open ourselves up to Russian retaliation.